recording in progress, but it is recording.
Okay, well, thank you all for joining tonight. I call this meeting to order. If we could all please stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And roll call. Let's see. We have Andy Marks here.
Andy Mark.
Judy.
Kevin Tewig.
And
Munson.
we see you, Carl. And I'm Joe David. So we have enough for a quorum. So we'll begin. Any additions to the agenda for tonight? Okay. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, the agenda doesn't say it, but you also have to approve the agenda.
Oh,
Move to approve the agenda as submitted.
second. All right. All those in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. No opposed? Okay. All right, so no additions. Interested citizens, audience requests and comments. Yeah, okay. Recognize Miss Robinson, is that correct? Robinson, sorry.
But close.
And someone taking time. That's it.
Tammy Robertson, Medical Lake resident. Hi, please be sure to truly review Ecology's blog on wetlands through the seasons, an extremely interesting and enlightening article for those folks who do not appreciate wetlands, but do appreciate improved water quality, storing flood waters, and providing habitat for wildlife. Part of the vision of the Commission is to provide advice, guidance, and recommendations to City Council concerning growth in Medical Lake. The city's mission is to build a community to enhance the quality of life within the beautiful backdrop of our lakes, forests, and farmland, which is in accordance with the city's vision statement. Planning commissioners, please state your own personal position and priority in protecting and preserving our natural environment, lakes, wetlands, and forests, while guiding best practices for growth of the community. And where does this fall on your list of priorities? In other words, is it at the top, middle, or bottom of your personal priorities? Chair, please have each commissioner answer these two simple questions sometime during today's meeting. I know it would be a great idea for our commissioners to officially invite our ecology folks to come and do an educational, informational presentation during an upcoming meeting to talk about what their guidance and support entails. Plus, maybe ecology can also give words of wisdom based on experience to our city, especially since we now have two brand new commissioners, and this will also be a good refresher for the others. In addition to inviting ecology, maybe the city could also officially invite DNR and the Department of Fish and Wildlife folks later. These agencies have a wealth of information and experience the commissioners and the city should learn about. Why is it okay for the city to pass inaccurate and false information to the commission and then expect them to make an informed decision? This makes no sense. According to the Department of Ecology, Mr. Jeremy Sykes, Regional Section Manager, email dated 17 July, I quote, "We don't have a model ordinance per se, but we do have a lot of guidance intended for local jurisdictions to use when updating their wetlands CAO provisions. This website is a great resource for anyone with interest in wetlands." End of quote. Therefore, when the city had stated the following sentence in their email to the commissioners dated 26 June, Please note that the model ordinance was part of the guidebook from the Department of Ecology published in 2016 is not factual. The name of this so-called model ordinance should have been identified, but it was not. How can a model ordinance, a law which supposedly is required to be followed, be part of a guidebook, which is only guidance, meaning the city can use this or not? Why didn't the commissioners catch this using critical reading skills or at least ask some questions? It seems our commissioners do not fully understand the difference between ordinance and a guidebook, plus the role ecology plays with the city. When the city states it is a model ordinance, this depends on what side of the so-called fence one is standing on. Those who want to protect and preserve our natural environment resources will want to have more protections than what is going to be required in this model ordinance. Using the words model ordinance really has no meaning because there's no such thing as a perfect ordinance. My viewpoint, a model ordinance will be one that the city's agenda, not one for the environment. City of Medical Lake must not leave protecting our natural beauty, lakes, wetlands, forests to the state of Washington. Based on the city's terminology used in the email, it sounds like if it fits into the city's agenda, then they will use ecology's guidance, so-called ordinance. But if it doesn't, the city does not. In other words, the city picks and chooses when to use a model guidance, not a model ordinance from ecology, when it best suits them. Back in 2023, I noticed the city went only over the amendments that Commissioner Munson had proposed, which was co-authored. It took the city 6 months to give the response in red, but only to the ones proposed by Commissioner Munson. The city did not respond back in writing to the latest amendments requested by a citizen dated 15 December 2022. I'm requesting, please, for an ADA accommodation between 30 seconds to 1 minute to finish conveying my message. It's less than a sentence due to my speech disability.
Give another minute.
Second.
Second, all in favor? Any
Aye.
opposed? Okay, you get the extra 60 seconds.
Okay, I gotta find out where I stopped. Hang on. Oh, right. Okay, to the ones proposed by Commissioner Munson, the city did not respond back in writing to the latest amendments requested by a citizen dated 15 December. Why is this? This is new. It would seem perception if recommendations come from the residents, they were ignored or overlooked unless one of the commissioners stepped in and brought the topic up. Not a good position to take to ignore suggestions or to not reply back to the residents. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Are there any other individuals wishing to make any comments? No. Anyone online? No, okay. And we'll move to approve the minutes. Can I have everybody had a chance to read it? Can I have a motion to approve?
Sure, so moved.
I'll second.
Second it? Any discussion or? All right, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, it's approved and moved. Next is staff reports.
Okay, I don't have much on the staff report category because I have several other things on the agenda. But in the month of August, I'm gonna be out of the office for a couple weeks on vacation. And due to my absence and the fact that our next planning commission meeting is also the same night as Linger at the Lake, I am asking if you would consider canceling the August 28th meeting.
So, does anybody like to make a motion?
Sure, I'll move to cancel the August 28th meeting.
And you, do you have any discussion?
I'll second the motion.
Second it. Any, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Oh, okay, no opposed. All right, so it's in the record that August 28th.
Correct.
All right. Planning Commission meeting for August 28th will be canceled and we'll meet again in September.
Correct.
Okay. Next is our scheduled items. Which I think most of them all. The first year for you, right?
The first one's mine. The
Okay.
second one is our code enforcement officer. So an update on our comprehensive plan update. Last time we looked at the results, I had preliminary results at the meeting for our surveys. And since then, the final results were emailed, or at least the link, I forget if it was the document or the link. They're both on our website. Hopefully you've had the opportunity to review those. They were really interesting. I was very thankful for the time that people took to give us good feedback in those two surveys. So that concluded phase 1 of our update. It was the idea phase. Now we're into phase 2, the concept phase, basically vision and values. So what came out of the initial survey is vision statements. So I'm not saying statement at this time, but I have a list of 10 statements. I gave it to you tonight, a colorful top. I also emailed it just before the meeting. So if you prefer electronic copies, you have that in your inbox. So these, not this exact version, but a previous version was given to our steering committee. We had a steering committee meeting on the 10th. So they reviewed what was provided and made some good suggestions, and they've been revised, and you see this here. Our phase 2 is public engagement. We are going to do sort of like reporter on the street. So we will be attending various community events and Lakes Grocery, kind of like the Girl Scouts, to get input on various parts of these vision statements. So at Linger at the Lake, which is next Thursday, we're going to have actually a team with a camera. So that'll be the real reporter on the street. They will be asking folks, I'll provide the information ahead of time. They'll be asking them questions and getting people to answer, and then we'll have that video footage that we can use in the future. So not only will we get good information, but it's fun to have that and we'll provide on our website some clips. So otherwise, it won't be camera action, but steering committee members and yourselves if you wish, and I will invite city council also. There's 8 opportunities. So farmers market, we have a couple events. We have athletic events going on. So we have a football camp, a soccer camp, and it's called Mini Movers for the really young ones. So basically during those times, each one has 2 camps. And so basically the switchover time, we're going to have 2 members at a time go out and just, report on the street. Excuse me, can I ask you a couple questions? The city's doing this. We'd like to hear from you. At farmers market, we won't be having a booth. It'll be the same idea. So I did the booth last year. I had a couple of commissioners help me with that. Judy was one of them, Carl another. It was a good experience, but it's a big commitment. The farmers market's 4 hours plus setup and takedown. And I didn't want to burden people with all that. So we're going to do the same approach. We're going to have the reporter on the street. There's a lot of people mingling or meandering through farmers market. So there'll be plenty of opportunity to just get some feedback on that one-on-one basis. And then finally, the lakes will basically set up like the Girl Scouts, a little table at the entrance, and ask people if they'd like to answer a couple questions, give us their feedback about generally the vision statement and values. So we're not going to just hand them this and be like, what do you think? There's too many words. In each event, each event will probably focus on one of them and break that down a little so people can it's a little easier to digest. But I'm excited about this sort of experiment of having our committee members represent the city and find out what our citizens have to say. At the same time, I will be posting this on our website, and there's already on our comp plan page an opportunity to comment. So it'll say, you know, comment below, make suggestions below, sort of thing. And then my role, biggest role during this phase is I'm going to set up meetings with business owners to talk about, you know, economic development and what they see for our city and what could help businesses both continue to thrive, do better, bring more in. So today I had sort of a preliminary conversation with the owner of our car wash. And I'd like to make him a poster child because he only had nice things to say about our city. And it was just really refreshing. And he said, it's one of the nicest places. And he is part of a family that owns many, many car washes across the state. And he says it's one of the nicest places because he doesn't have to worry about vandalism or people breaking locks or homelessness. And so it's just, and that he likes having a hardware store in case he needs a part. So he had lots of good things to say about the community. So it was really nice. So the vision statement, I realize I handed this to you as, you know, the meeting was starting. I don't expect you to have time to look at it, but in your own time, if you could read through these and provide me any feedback, if you feel like something isn't quite right, if something is missing, I would like to hear that. Any questions about where we're at with the comp plan?
How will you pick, sorry, may I go?
No,
How will you pick which statement to put in front of a group?
Each group?
I mean, if you're at Lakes and somebody walks up, we're gonna say number 6, here we go.
We're gonna choose one subject for each event. And I would like it to correspond, except it doesn't. I didn't quite find the correspondence between the statements because we have 3 recreation events. So we're not going to ask every time about recreation. You know, we have the Linger at the Lake, which is a public event, which is number 7, talking about placemaking events and recreational tourism. So, you know, that might be the subject, but they didn't line up super nicely. So I will pick one subject for each one. And if you have recommendations, happy to hear it.
Sure.
Or how to handle it, because the part that's sort of in the air is like, how do we bring that feedback in a useful way, right? So we have the folks out there having those discussions. How, in what format am I going to bring that information back and synthesize it for our next phase?
Will you tell me again where these draft vision statements originated?
So from the Pulse of the Community survey.
Okay, so that these are actually things people said.
It's a mix. So we have our existing comp plan, the survey, and then our strategic plan has a vision statement also. So it's kind of trying to bring all those pieces together to cover all the parts of the comprehensive plan.
Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else have any questions? Okay, thank you. Next is the code enforcement process. Dave.
Hello, I'm Dave Uhas. I'm the code enforcement officer here at City Medical Lake, so I work for you. Elisa asked me before I went on vacation to put together a quick presentation to talk about the process that I do when I'm dealing with code related cases and things like that. A little bit of background of me. I've been in law enforcement for 14 years. I hold a level 1 commission with the sheriff's office, which allows me to enforce actual ordinances as law and write civil infractions. That process took about a year to get through the process and backgrounding while after being hired. So I am now able to do that. I also hold a law enforcement commission with Cheney PD for an ancillary duty as well. So just to break down the process, I'm going to go through the process. There's a lot of steps, and then at the end, I'll have a couple of things, and go with questions. But just up front and ahead of time, if it's a case that is active that I'm working on, you ask me about a particular residence, to respect the privacy of the defendant, I may not want to discuss details of the case publicly. If it's something that you want to email me about, I can kind of give you an idea of where or what steps I'm at with the process. If you want to ask me about a residence that you have a problem with, I may just say, hey, I don't have that on my radar. Please send me an email as a complaint, and we can create a complaint, and I will take it from there. And then I can get with you, and I'll basically make you the reporting party. And then at that point, we'll go from there, and I can tell you what the case number is and kind of all that stuff. So, do you want me to have the clicker, or that's fine. I only have 7 slides, but there's a lot of stuff on them. So typically I'll receive a complaint in various ways. Most likely it's from a citizen complaint of some form. I will, while I'm patrolling around and maybe looking at another property, I will on-view some ordinance violations. On-view ordinance violations are the ones that I would initiate as the city. They take a back seat to a citizen complaint. So if I'm working on a case and I'm editing the photos for that case, I'm getting ready for whatever part of the process, it will take a back seat to a phone call I get that minute from a citizen saying, I need you to investigate this case. So I really am complaint based first. And then if there's time, I go in, and what I see I can handle. Because it's easier for me just to drive around blinders on, because 50% of the properties in town, believe it or not, have ordinance violations. I know that sounds crazy, but that's absolutely true. And that's just the way it is, and that's for all municipalities. So complaints will come in via email or phone. We're working on a system to better output our website so that there's a better form, and I get informed with more details. We have Colton up front working on it, who's kind of our webmaster right now, and he's dialing it in for me, and I've asked for specific things. So that will change over time. I'll verify the complaint is code enforcement jurisdiction, meaning that it's within city limits. I just got a call from somebody, and she said, yeah, my address is Medical Lake. And I looked it up, and I pulled it up on Scout, and I said, I'm so sorry, you're not in the city limits. I have no jurisdiction there. I'm gonna have to transfer you over to county code enforcement. And I discussed the process with her of that. That happens more often than not, because the city is not that big. So after that, if it's not code enforcement, what I usually typically do, and that could be that it's an animal complaint. It could be a complaint of a vehicle parked illegally, creating an obstruction. There are specific agencies I would direct them toward, like Crime Check, getting our deputies out there to ticket the vehicle, especially with all the construction. I've had to go out and have vehicles tagged with a 24-hour tow notice recently, and I've got the deputies to do that because they can make it happen faster than I can. Other agencies I've dealt with, there's Adult Protective Services, things like that. So I see a lot of influx, and obviously I'll get calls that come in, and it's an absolute criminal violation. It's not related. I can't prosecute criminal violations. So I'll say, hey, that's a crime. We need to report this to the right parties. If it's code enforcement related, I'll identify the type of case, and typically I have a breakdown. If it's a property crime, property is pretty broad, but it's anything at a property that I can say is a property crime, which could include a really poorly kept front yard, meaning that they don't get rid of items and they just pile them up in their front yard, things like that. And we do see that a lot. That's a common occurrence. We'll see animal complaints, and usually those, I will take note of them. I will create a case number for an animal complaint. I will have that party contact the appropriate agency with Scraps. But I usually say, hey, I like to know what's going on with animals in our town. Please let me know Scraps' case number and the disposition. And call me if you're not getting through to Scraps. I'll try my methods as well, because I tend to reach out to them. And then I'll create a case number and a folder. So that's where I can kind of keep it all organized. I will estimate the severity of the situation and triage if necessary, because some things are going to take precedence over other things. Once that's done, I'll get out and I'll gather some evidence. I'll take some photos to validate that this is truly a violation of our ordinance and we have a problem. And those photos typically will go in the folder. Depending on the situation, some issues, I'll look at it and I'll re-inspect it within 7 to 10 days, just to see, maybe they're moving. Maybe they're doing a small construction project in their yard. And I also give some leniency toward when we have the Medical Lake cleanup day. I'm expecting people to pull all their junk out, put it in their front yard, and then get ready to haul that off. And I want that. That's fine. But if I see a front yard that looks like that, and then after the dump day, it hasn't changed, then I think, well, now we have an issue. And that would be one of those on-view cases that I take on and put that, when I have time, I do the on-view cases. And then I'll create a photo PDF with the violations, and in the photo, I will outline the actual areas of concern. So it's very obvious when you look at one of my photo PDFs what I'm angling for. What are the items that are of concern? And sometimes I'll notate on the photo what I'm looking at. And then typically the process is I'll issue a violation letter if that's applicable. In some cases, we won't issue a violation letter. I'll email the person, I'll call them, because it may not require legal steps. It's more like, hey, you're watering outside of hours, which is super common. Unfortunately, I caught the city accidentally doing it today. We had some testing going on and they were testing the sprinklers. And I said, you guys know that that's messing me up because we're not supposed to be doing that. We're the city. And they're like, nope, the sprinkler guys are fixing the sprinklers. So that's why it's on. Okay, fine with that. It's one of those things. Next slide, please. Violation letter will typically include the name, date, violation type, code description, and required actions. So typically I give 15 to 30 days depending on what it is. I do have some leeway, and I have had people where I've been like, hey, listen, what's it going to take for you to fix this problem? Because this doesn't look like you can do it in 30 days. And I'm willing to work with people. We are a community. I'm not there to hammer people on things. I know things happen in life. I've had several people that they physically could not handle the situation that just happened over time. So it's one of those things. I usually let them know when the date of reinspection is, what I'm expecting to see on that reinspection. And then it's also, I note that it was certified and what day I certified that letter and sent it. What legal action could be taken if it's unresolved. And I'll mention the civil penalties. Right now, current civil penalties, if I write a civil infraction, it's $513 per day that the nuisance exists. But in order to initiate that, I have to write a physical ticket every single day. So every time I write that physical ticket, that's $513. And I don't want the community thinking I'm some mean guy punishing people monetarily, and that's not what I'm trying to do. So I'd rather work with you. Call me up, let's work on the problem together. I get it, things get out of hand. And then I also include that photo PDF with the violation areas outlined and highlighted. So it's clear as day exactly what I'm talking about. After that, I will create an Outlook calendar entry for the date of reinspection. So after I know that they have received the letter, I will verify, or I'll go and validate any changes that have happened. And I'll usually address those with additional photos so that we can show the progress or lack thereof. I'll maintain a digital or physical case file, notes, photos, contact logs. Typically, if a defendant calls me, I say, hold on a second, I press a button on my phone, I record the call because that call is evidence. Then I want to maintain all that evidence. It's important to have that evidence later on down the road. So they say on voice, hey, I'm going to take care of this within this many days, and they don't. Well, I have evidence that they said they did. So when it goes to court, it's easier for me. I do use a spreadsheet right now for case management. There is code enforcement case management software. That's for municipalities that I think are far bigger and have like 5 or 6 code enforcement officers and sometimes up to 20 or 30. Verify the notification has been received. I get a lot of times where I'll send a certified letter, which costs the city a significant amount of money every time I send it, and that letter bounces back undeliverable. The person either is not at that's not the correct address, or they are refusing to sign for it, knowing, hey, I got a letter for you to sign from the city, and they can refuse it. So in that case, I still legally have started that 30-day timer, but I'm still trying to get a hold of them in other means. And a lot of times I'll take that certified letter and I will rip off all the certified stuff, put it in a new envelope, and just mail it snail mail. And if it's to an address and it's bounced back twice, I will go and put it on the front porch, which is legal for me to do. I cannot put it in their mailbox legally. So I'll try to find a way to make sure they got the picture, that they're getting the message from me, because sometimes that's a problem as well. If the case is not resolved or ignored, I could issue a second notice, and I have in the past for some cases where I think either they didn't get the first letter, or they just there may be a difficulty of them actually accomplishing what we're looking for. And then I'll reinspect to see what work is being done. If there's progress, if it's not resolved, the issuance of a civil infraction may be necessary. We don't like taking that step, but that is a step that I can take, and that's where it goes out of my hands. If it's resolved, I'll update the case file to say resolved. I talked to them and they said they would do this, and they did this, and I can close the case right there. Civil infraction process is so once it goes to that step where someone basically ignores everything, and I know they signed for the certified letter. They know what I'm asking for, and they're ignoring contact from me, not calling me, not emailing me, making no effort whatsoever to correct the violation. I write what's similar to a law enforcement report with a timeline of the investigation, the process that I went through for the investigation, and contacting them to validate everything, the steps that were taken. I will typically obtain new additional evidence photos because I like to have fresh photos as well. These are the initial photos. A month or two later, these are the same photo. These are new photos, but look at the condition. Has it changed? No. To validate that they're going to be given a civil infraction. I then have to hand fill out a hard copy of a civil infraction. It looks just like a ticket from a law enforcement ticket book. It's the same ticket you would get if you were speeding. It's a very similar form. I make copies and photo of all documents and photos, and then I create that and I bring that to the court, and I drop that all off at the court. I take all that documentation and then I upload that to the prosecuting attorney's cloud. He has a cloud folder for his law enforcement files. I send those there, and then he will be alerted by the court that they have a new defendant or a new case. And then when he looks for that name, he can look in that folder and see a folder named that subject. He can go in and see all of that information I provided to the court, and it will break down the investigation, like start to picture. I'm trying to paint a picture of what happened start to finish, so he can help work in the case for me. When that happens and it goes to court, it's out of my hands. I can't do anything else. I can write more tickets if that will get through to them, but typically I like the prosecutor to step forward and handle the first steps, which is getting them into court. Excuse me. Worst case scenario, and it's happened a couple of times to me, someone just pays the $513. That's not ideal. It's not beneficial to the city. We're not trying to make money off of these violations. We want them to comply. So when that happens, unfortunately, I have to issue another citation, and that's another $513. So hopefully they get the picture and they go talk to the prosecutor and go to court, and they can sort it out, and he can say, hey, I can mitigate this if you take care of the problem. And then that's how the process starts. Once that's happening, I'm in the background as a witness, and I get contacted by the prosecutor saying, where are they at? Have they complied? And then he can close the case based on that. And if they don't comply, then he has additional steps he can take, warrant, mitigation warrant, things like that. So that's that last line, dealing with the prosecutor and working on exhibits and stuff. Final disposition, record keeping. If I have to close out a file, I'll close it out, resolved, abated, or they're fined. Like I said, finding somebody is not ideal. It's not what I'm going for. I want people to clean up their properties or whatever it may be that the issue is. And then I just, my folders in a cloud folder, so I have access to all my files from however many investigations I've done. So it has all that stuff in there in case there's a public records request, I have it. And so going over some current issues ongoing, the process, and then, I started this in April of 2023. And it's my first time doing code enforcement, and it's a different form of law enforcement, and I can't physically hurt people and get in fights and stuff like I'm used to, like people wanting to assault me. It's not that. It's much more calm. That being said, code enforcement officers do get killed by people because you have to go to people's properties. So I do protect myself when I go to the door of a property. I'll be wearing a vest and I'll have a police radio and stuff like that, just so you know, don't get scared. It takes so long for a case. I couldn't believe how long it takes for this process. And it's just crazy how long it surprised me, but I'm trying to speed things up. I'm trying new methods to make things faster. Working with outside agencies can be difficult and slow. Working with the sheriff's office, working with Adult Protective Services, and working with SCRAPS. Sometimes they have their other things going. I'm going to be lower on their list of importance. So that's just the way it is. Currently, our code in the state it's in is somewhat difficult to interpret. It can be hard, and it's great that I have Elisa within an arm shot of me. I can shoot her with a rubber band and say, all right, help me with this one, and she'll give me a hand with it. But sometimes code itself is difficult. Law and reading legal books are difficult. So having someone who's an expert in it's very helpful. And sometimes I have to use other tools as well because I can't always bug her for information. One of the things I noticed when I started that many of the blighted properties in town have been out of compliance for years, sometimes decades. Some of these properties have been bad. And for example, medical case number 2307, I started that case on 5/3/2023. They just had their second court hearing, and that case still isn't closed. they've been to court, they paid their fine once, I fined them again, they went to court. They went to court 3 times. This is their 5th visit to court, and this would be the second to last. So I'm expecting prior to their next visit, contact from the attorney, because the attorney will contact me and say, so can we close this case, or do we have to continue and I have to file a warrant of abatement? That's how long things take. It's just a slow process. I wish it was faster. It's not like law enforcement where you have a crime, you have evidence, you take someone to jail, and the prosecutor takes that. This is low level on the judicial system, so it doesn't, take a lot of precedence. Traffic tickets are basically the same thing, and I see 80% of the ones I see there are traffic tickets, and 20% are maybe code violations, are very rare. So, if you have any questions, long process, but a lot to it.
I didn't understand that last statement. 80% are traffic.
Yeah, most of the stuff we see going to court is traffic related.
You see, or
Yeah, when if it's going to court, it's probably traffic related. Very, very little of it is property stuff. Very little code enforcement.
and you're not talking medical lake traffic.
Just general traffic.
Okay.
Yeah, most infractions are traffic. My infractions, or I should say, like Medical Lake, Airway Heights, Cheney, their infractions that they write through code enforcement are such a low number comparably to the traffic.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Traffic's super common for infractions.
Thank you.
Question?
Go ahead, Judy.
Yeah, can I ask your opinion? Airway Heights, they do twice a year the passes for the dump.
I love it.
And yeah, well, it seems to me it would save us a lot of work, a lot of money,
I agree.
everything is worth me bringing it up and pursuing it.
I was told about that. I think the city administrator told me about that, and he also brought up a new option. I know there was a new contract with our solid waste, and I'm not sure the details of it, but there was something about the new company that it was a possibility that a dumpster could be gotten for residents that need, that don't have the means to drive. I don't have a trailer, I don't have a truck, but I need to clean up my stuff for code enforcement. Now, I don't know what happened with that, but I know that solid waste thing was an option or an idea, but it wouldn't be that big of a deal to have a dumpster that you drive to, Fox Hollow and say, hey, fill this dumpster up. And they just yank it. Oh God, it got filled quick. Let's put another one out. I don't see the problem with that. As a community and being such a small community, that would be a great
And
idea.
Airway Heights used to do that, but they found a lot of garbage. People didn't really clean up and dumped a lot of garbage outside the dumpsters and that.
Oh, sure.
And then they decided, well, we're gonna go within twice a year, every city resident gets a free pass to the dump, and it's so many pounds free and so many tires free, and
It's a great idea.
everything we're allowed to throw away here, they're allowed to bring there.
Yeah, we do have a contract with Sunshine, but they don't do they're not like the Waste Energy Center that is the actual dump. So I
Well, I
think
think it's Sunshine that does the dumping in Airway Heights.
really.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
Sunshine that does that.
I think it's a great idea. I think any way that we can support our citizens by giving them an easier avenue to dump
And
things they
save
don't
the
want.
town money. Because when we do
Sure.
our thing here, people come from all over.
Mhm.
People come from Airway Heights and dump their garbage. And I know 2 years ago, people came from Davenport. And right, our tax dollars are paying for all
Yeah.
this.
And they're filling up. I've seen every year. I've seen more and more of those
Yes.
dumpsters. Like
We're getting
it's like
more from
8 this
out
year.
of town. So
Yeah.
I think, to me, it seems logical to
Mhm.
everybody in the city limits gets 2 passes a year and that. And
And I think it's great that we have a vegetation place to dump our lawn
Yes.
clippings. Not many cities have that, so that's a bonus. And maybe that is something that we can look at as an avenue. Hey, we have this. Why can't we just get a dumpster that gets filled, or we get a pass to go to that place and dump that stuff? So and that leads to the other side of it, where I have citizens that physically can't clean up their mess. They kicked their kid out. Their kid was a hoarder and hoarded all these car parts and whatever, and they're an elderly man or woman that they can't do the cleanup themselves. So, and a lot of times I'm like, I got to figure out a way to get you some, community outreach or some help. And we've had church groups that have helped before, but it's rare to get people that want to go help other people. We all got our own messes to clean up.
thanks.
Yeah.
Kevin, you had some?
So I understand what you're telling us about you can't answer specific property questions.
Well, you can ask me and I can tell you if it's an active case, and then that's, I mean, and then there's only so much I can tell you about an active case.
Sure, I understand. So right across from the baseball field,
The high
on
school.
the Fave,
On the
right
high
across
school.
the high school. Yeah.
Sure, James Street. Yeah,
Yeah.
I know that resident very well. Yeah.
A lot of conversations.
A lot of conversations. I've had a lot of things come through there. I've had every single agency that I have contact with, I have had involved with a case with that resident. And it's not that they're bad people, they just are struggling and they have their battles that they're fighting. And it's an elderly couple, and they're trying their best. There's only so much I can ask, and I just recently reached out to a gentleman who's now helping the family out, who's a family member but doesn't live there. And I'm like, hey, what's going on with the fence project? And like, I don't want to have to write you guys a violation letter on the fence project, but you know how it looks. He's like, well, it looks, we're getting there, we're working on it. I'm like, we need to see some progress. So, I have a good rapport with him, but yeah, it's moving slow, a lot slower than I would like. Am I making it worse by making them go to court? Am I making, is it helping them in any way I mean, it's good to light the fire, and that is why I called and say, hey, I have some issues with the way it looks, because you're on Front Street, everybody sees your property. It's, that's unfortunately a burden for you, but it is what it is. So, yeah, that one's a tough one. I've had issues with them in the past, and they're not bad people. It's just, they're in a bad situation. The situation was very, very bad, and I won't get into the details of that, but it involved a lot of agencies, and luckily we got out of that, and now we're just looking at, the property is a little bit unkept. They're doing a fence project that's taking 6 months, whatever it may be. So if you want some more detail, you can call me up and I'll give you some more of the
I
detail.
appreciate your answer. Thank you.
Yeah,
I think it's nice that you're reasonable with these people
Yeah,
too.
yeah, you have to be. I mean, it's
Like I said, some of them, it's been taking years to get where they are now. It's not gonna clean up in 30 days.
and just like that referenced property from 2023, it started the case. It was my 7th case I ever opened here. I still don't love the way it looks, but wow, is it better? It's getting there. And when the prosecutor calls me and says, are we ready to close this case? I'll say, I'm gonna go take some pictures, I'll send them to you, and everything in a red box is gonna make me say no. And then he's gonna reach out to them or email them or call them and say, code enforcement officer says it's a no-go, your case is still active. It's better, but it's not good enough. I hate to say that. I don't want to be that guy, but it's not good enough. That's how bad the property was.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Stone Cottage,
What's that?
902 at LaFay, with the 2 huge yes signs attached to their fence.
Mhm.
That's, they're political signs, that we have some kind of
There's a lot
code for that.
to that. Yeah. So if it's political and it's on private property, there's not, as long as it's 100% on private property, there's not a lot we can do as long as it's under 32 square feet.
It's pretty big, but it's not that big.
Yeah, I know, and I've been looking into it. I was alerted to a case or a supposed code violation that was related to some political signs in the central business district recently, but it was before I went on vacation, and I didn't get the complaint. It never came to my desk, but the city administrator alerted me to look into it, and I did. I looked into it, and we found that the signs were legal. They're on private property. They're under the certain footage and all that. Our sign code, if you want to have a great read, go ahead and read the sign ordinance. It's really interesting and very hard to decipher, but it's there. And I have an AI breakdown of it that really helped me out a lot because I have to sometimes use something smarter than me, and I'll use a computer to help me figure that out. You had a question, sir?
Is there I thought there was a time limit, or maybe that might be in Spokane.
Let me grab the paper. It's right here, and it has some information on there.
That there's a time limit, like after an election or whatever it may be for that political advertisement.
Yeah.
Once
yeah,
the election's
after,
done, they have so many days to.
yes, after it's done. Yeah, remove promptly after the election to avoid a nuisance complaint. So say, let's just use Mayor Cooper has a sign on one of the buildings downtown. It's in a spot that's it's not on public right away, so it's on private property. It meets the criteria of the sign size. It's a temporary sign, and if she left it up after the election, then it could be considered a nuisance. But I don't think I could enforce that on a city employee because she's my boss and there would be a conflict of interest. So I don't know how that would be done, internally. I'm sure Airway Heights could hire me to investigate their own city, but it's harder for me because it's like, you don't, I mean, I could just tell her, hey, your sign needs to be taken down. Or what? Well,
Well, could you do that at the corner where the political signs are still up from the last election?
are they still up from the last election?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
what I'm saying.
Right.
One of them is getting covered with grass.
Well, I actually, I've been meaning to reach out to that resident anyway for some other reasons, so
Yes.
I can bring that up.
Okay.
It's a good idea. In fact, I was over there the other day and my camera was running for some reason. So it's on my radar, but I'm glad you brought up the sign portion of it. Signs are kind of an issue in the town. There was a point in time where I filled up the back of my truck with advertising signs because there was just so many Christmas light installer, and this is June. I'm like, why is, so yeah, our sign ordinance is it's not great, but it is there and there's something to follow. If you look historically at our old sign ordinance was a little bit easier to understand. The new one seems to be a little bit more difficult to navigate. But Elisa really loves it.
Okay, anybody else have any questions?
If you think of something later or you have a complaint on property or just want to call me up, say, hey, and don't say you're on the planning commission or whatever. I appreciate you guys doing this and being volunteers. That's awesome. But yeah, just call me up and say, hey, I have an issue I'd like to report, and I'll take it from there. And then I'll reach out to you and I'll say how much contact you want, and I'll let you know what I can tell you about the process. Typically if I write a civil infraction on someone, I'm not going to tell the reporting party. I'm not going to go, hey, let you know I wrote him a ticket. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to say I've got it, case is under review or whatever. Let's keep it kind of vague. But yeah, anytime, reach out to me if you have any questions.
Okay, Dave, thank you so much. And for everybody, since this is being recorded, if they didn't get Dave's contact information, it's on the City of Medical Lake website under city government. And then you go down to code enforcement, and it has a form on there, a link with a form and your phone number, and we can send you a message as well.
We'll be updating the form because right now it's been had a couple that were hit or miss. And then when it comes to me, it's like a scanned copy. I'd rather have it come like a PDF. So we'll work on it.
But everybody just want to make sure people online know where they can go if they do need to.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Thanks so much. Okay, next part, Robert's Rules of Order. Lisa.
Okay, so I can't remember exactly when we talked about Robert's rules. It was at least a year, could be closer to 2 years. It's just a good time for an update. So in your packet, I had those cheat sheets. I did not produce them. There's citations. They're from a couple of educational institutions. Most of it is accurate. It applies to us. There are a couple little things that don't apply to our particular situation because it's more broad and what kind of organization they're referring to. So I just want to go highlight a few things. You can ask questions. I feel like you're all competent, but I just feel like we also need to highlight things once in a while, make sure we're staying on course for Robert's Rules. So the city did recently purchase a copy of Robert's Rules. It should be up there.
Here it is.
It's not a thin book.
No, it's not.
So I'm thinking maybe we
That's some light,
should,
easy reading.
yeah, we might put some, little tags on there for the most pertinent. It's not that common that we have to refer to it because we also have the Planning Commission rules and procedures. But once in a while, we have a situation where we're not sure. So that's good for that. Just want to remind that the chair's running the meeting and that other members ask for permission to speak. So generally the chair will recognize you. Because of how our meetings are recorded, like if you take a peek at what's happening on the screen right now, we cannot see all of you. So it is very helpful, Chair, to state who is speaking, at least in a decision-making session, right? So who's made the motion, who's seconded, if somebody requests to speak, to state who's speaking, because sometimes we can figure it out, and once in a while we're like, who is talking right now? And it's really hard when we go back and look at the video to tell who's speaking or who seconded or something like that. Trying to stay on topic. Recently, we've had a couple times where one motion is open and the topic has kind of gone off course, and a second motion starts to come up, and our attorney has had to be like, wait a minute, like, let's wrap up that first one. And something that is in that document that we do not do is you do not have to fully restate the motion. So it is fine to say the motion has been stated, or if it's in writing somewhere, you can reference, where it's written. You don't actually have to read the entire motion, because I know in the past, sometimes whomever's chairing will attempt to read, and sometimes it's quite long. So you don't have to read the whole thing. You can just say, as stated. On the public comment page, the last page, reminder that it is a public meeting. The public is invited to observe, and they're invited to comment during a specific period, but the meeting does belong to the planning commission. So you're the decision makers. And when the public comments, you're under no obligation to entertain or take action at the time. You can always request staff to answer something either at the time or later, or you can let the party know that staff will get back to them, but you're not required to take an action at the time during the meeting. And then a reminder that you're not allowed per public meeting law, open public meeting law, to have any meeting outside of this to talk about city business. We're a small town. You can socialize together. You can all go to the same party. As long as you don't talk about city business during that party, then you're fine. But it is very important. And it's not even about quorum. Even two of you having a discussion about city business and decision making, that's looked at on. So try to keep any decision making, you can still talk about things that happen in the city, you can talk about things that happen in planning commission, but when it comes to like the decision making process, we want to stay away from having those discussions outside of this setting, because we need to know how that decision making is being done. We need to be transparent about that. So those are the things I wanted to bring up about that. Did anybody have any questions about the cheat sheet that I provided, or how we run things?
Anybody have any questions?
She answered mine.
Okay. Well, all right. Okay.
Okay,
Thank you so much.
so I'm gonna stay up here.
Yep. You're doing the accessory
Yes.
dwelling units, accessory though.
Yeah. So this, the reason I'm bringing this up, the part of our periodic update, the comp plan update, the development regulation update, the reason we were given money to do it, the reason we've been given an extra 6 months to complete it, is there were a lot of legislative changes regarding growth management and what's required of cities. And some of them are substantial, and so it might not have a lot to do with the comp plan, which is the process we're in right now, and more to do with the regulations, which we've set aside 6 months for the latter part of next year. And so I don't want to leave everything for the last moment trying to understand what's going on and what's being required of us from the state, because we'll also have discussions about potential code changes to carry out our comprehensive plan. So it's going to be a big project. So this is kind of getting ahead of the curve on understanding some terminology and some regulations and what's expected of us. So this first one, accessory dwelling units. First of all, why are we talking about housing? So a lot of the legislative changes are, and not just about code, but other aspects of government, are to address affordable housing. and the state's growing housing crisis. So that's why we're talking about it. And we're not just talking about ADUs, but we'll talk about middle housing. Not a lot tonight because the quick guide I gave you, for some reason, the state that produced that, Department of Commerce, put both ADUs and middle housing in the same document. So we are required to allow ADUs. We do not right now. Our city code does not allow an ADU in any way, shape, or form. Middle housing, which is basically plexes, so everything between a single family house and an apartment building, so duplex, triplex, fourplex, plus other situations, say cottage housing where you have multiple single families on the same property with a common courtyard. So those type of things are considered middle housing. Those we are not required to do by state, but it's a good idea for us to look at those things because middle housing is how you get some affordability in your town, not just apartment buildings, because not everybody wants to live in an apartment building. Next slide. So this I borrowed from, I think, Bozeman, Montana. And it was, I'm sorry, the pictures are a little not crazy clear, but the idea of like all the different types of housing that is possible. So of course, this detached homes, accessory dwellings are what we're going to speak about tonight. Tiny homes, which, these days people talk about tiny homes and they think about pre-manufactured, something that comes on wheels to the site. But I noticed that picture there, and I have a feeling, I didn't inquire, but I have a feeling these photos are all from places in Bozeman. That houses can be small. Like I lived in a house of 750 square feet, and it was great for me at the time. So a tiny house doesn't have to be those that arrive on wheels. Cottage housing, as I described, with common area, plexes, townhomes or row homes, those you have your own entrance. It really depends. It could be for rent or it could be for sale. Live work is when you have both spaces. So the bottom one looks like more of a commercial environment where there's a residence, and the top one looks more like a residence that happens to have a business of some sort. Courtyard apartments, multiplexes, and mid-rise. So we have, of course, a few mid-rise over off 902, the newer apartment buildings. But this is just to show like there's all types of housing. Our code allows like half of these. So it's something that we will be addressing, like how to modernize our code, because our code's kind of old-fashioned in many respects. So definition of an accessory dwelling unit. It's a dwelling unit located on the same lot as a single family housing unit, duplex, triplex, townhome, or other housing unit. Now this definition is from the state. This is not a definition I would ever give an accessory dwelling unit. For me, it is something that is only associated with a single family residence and located in a neighborhood where only single family residences are allowed. But the state is defining it otherwise, and that's going to make life more difficult for us because how do you decide which unit is an accessory unit and which is not the accessory unit? Like you could actually build a triplex and say, no, this is a duplex with one accessory unit. So it's sort of an odd thing that the state has done, but this is what we're dealing with. So examples of where an accessory dwelling unit could be. So these are all single family homes, but you can see each one, the yellow represents the accessory. So it can be all kinds of forms. Like it could be a new structure in the backyard. Generally, if they're detached, they're in the backyard. So a new structure in the backyard. It could be an addition attached to the house. It could be somewhere inside the house that gets converted to a separate unit. It could be a basement. It could be new construction above a garage, or it could be a garage conversion. So if they have other parking on the site, or if it's a zone that doesn't require parking, they could convert a garage into an accessory dwelling unit. So there are 10 requirements the state is making. So we'll just go through them. So number one, we must allow 2 accessory units per lot. So yeah, I don't know about that. It's a lot. It's surprising. But that is what we're required. We have to allow 2 units per lot for anywhere a single family residence is allowed. There are some exceptions for critical areas and shorelines, so we will be looking at that to see what's appropriate for our city. Number 2, we cannot require owner occupancy. So sometimes cities in the past, now we all have to get rid of it, but they will say that one of the units has to be owner occupied, and they're trying to limit everything becoming a rental. There is an exception for short-term rentals, so we do have the opportunity. Our code right now does not address short-term rentals in any way, shape, or form either. So as we go through this, we'll look at that too. But the state says that we can say for short-term rentals that 1 unit has to be owner occupied. Number 3, we must allow separate sale of ADUs. So when I first saw this, I was like, what in the world are they talking about? But they have come out with a guide for unit lot subdivisions. So it's kind of like having a condo situation, but you could potentially own the land also. So typically a condo, you own the unit and the land is commonly owned, but this could look like that, or it could be you actually own the property that the house is on or the unit's on, and you could have common area also. You don't have to, so it's open. The only thing that this unit lot subdivision does not allow is stacked units. That would still be under the condominium laws. And I haven't worked with the condominium laws in this state, but my understanding from several parties is that they are difficult. And not a lot of condos have been done in recent times because of however the law is written. So this could be some kind of workaround, but what we will be looking at is how do you deal with this? Like it says we have to do it, and our code right now has minimum lot sizes. Obviously, minimum lot sizes wouldn't apply for this, so we'll have to work that one out. Number 4, regarding parking. So there's a limit on how many parking spaces we can require. So no more than 1 required for the ADU if the lot is less than 6,000 square feet, and no more than 2 if it's larger, or 6,000 or larger. Right now, our municipal code says for single family, you need 2 parking spaces. So, you know, potentially 3 or 4 parking spaces we would look at on a property. We don't have to require parking. They're saying we can't require more than this. Number 5, we have to allow the maximum size to be 1,000 square feet. This is a little crazy to me because we have houses that are less than 1,000. So are you going to create an accessory unit that's bigger than the primary house? But they say we have to. So it's another, like, how are we going to deal with that? You know, when a permit comes in, we're going to have a method of, you know, how we label things. And you know, if the smaller house is still in the front, it's still going to be the primary. It's something we'll deal with. So number 6, so we have to allow 0 setbacks adjacent to an alley. Right now, it depends. You could put a detached garage on the back property line, but if it was a living space, it would have to be 15 feet. So we will have to adjust to allow 0 setbacks for accessory dwelling units. The other thing is the state says, like, we cannot use things like setbacks and building coverage to prevent ADUs from happening. So they're going to be watching carefully about this. Like, you know, cities think that they can somehow get around all these regulations by creating restrictions. Not the case. We need to embrace this in the best way possible for our community. Number 7, we must not have design standards that are more restrictive than what's required for the main residence. So right now, we don't really have design standards outside of setbacks and building coverage, height. So this is not an issue at the time, but if we ever add design standards, it has to be equal. Because jurisdictions have used design standards to restrict ADUs in the past. Number 8, we must allow ADUs to be at least 24 feet in height. So in our town right now, if you're doing an accessory structure like garage, shop, whatever, it can't be taller than the house. So this is something we will have to address also. We have to, if we're going to allow these to be 24 feet, we might be looking at all the other structures that are allowed and what height we will allow those to be. Number 9, impact fees can be no more than 50% of the fee for the principal unit. So the way our impact fees, we have a flat rate for all resident or all single family residences, and so we couldn't do more than 50%. Side note, we will be reviewing our impact fees and updating those as part of this process because they haven't been revisited generally since the 90s. I think maybe the parks one got updated at maybe 10 years ago. So we're going to be looking at impact fees to make sure that we have the appropriate fees. So we have impact fees for parks, fire, and schools. So fire and schools, we just forward that money. So we will be working with the fire district and the school district to find out what is appropriate. And the impact fees have restrictions on what you can use them for and how soon you have to use them. So I don't know if it applies to all of them, but I know parks, you have to use the money within 6 years. So if you don't have a lot of development going on, like and it has to be, like a facility or, physical, you're not paying for staffing or a remodel or things like that. It has to be associated with growth. So if you only have a few houses being built, what are you going to use that money for? So it's an interesting exercise looking at impact fees. And finally, number 10, we cannot require street improvements as part of a permit. So we have had so few new houses since I've worked here. I don't actually know the position of the city on this, but some jurisdictions, if you build a new house that is on a street that doesn't have full improvements, you would be required to do the improvements. So for instance, put in a sidewalk, curbs, planter strip, whatever is necessary. If the street is paved, you might be required to pave up to the property. So in this instance, not knowing for sure what our requirements are at this time, we definitely can't do it if somebody's just adding an accessory dwelling unit to the property. So here's some examples of what we might see in the future. So on the left are 2 detached structures, a couple of different styles, but you can see stuck in the back corner, like you might find a shed just a little bit bigger. The top right is a residence where they've added on essentially to create an ADU, and the bottom one is a garage that was built with an ADU incorporated into it. I meant to say at the beginning, just to remind people that we've all lived in a variety of housing types. That some people get a little worked up when you start talking about apartments or duplexes or accessory dwelling units and who's going to live in these. But very few of us leave our family home, possibly a single family house, and at the age of 18 move into another single family house. Like often we have gone through a series of homes, whether it be apartments or duplexes or manufactured homes or whatever. And then potentially when we get older and we're empty nesters, we might want to, change our residence also. So just a reminder that when we talk about this housing, we're accommodating everybody in the community. Everybody has different needs for size and what they can afford. So that's what we're trying to accomplish because Medical Lake, it's important to us that we stay in an affordable community. And then I put this in here because I am sure lots of people are like, oh my gosh, this is gonna pass and we are gonna be inundated with accessory dwelling units. So according to the Spokane Business Journal, the city of Spokane has been processing approximately 30 permits a year. So if you take, you know, how big Spokane is, that is just a drop in the bucket. So even though it's a more affordable, you still have to pay for it, and it's not cheap. It's still a full unit. You know, you have to pay for all the pieces. So we will, you know, I'm sure people will. We get inquiries regularly about it, but it's not that everybody's going to have one because it's expensive to do. Yeah. So any questions about?
Organized.
Elisa, this has to apply to specific zones in the city?
It says, the state law says wherever a single family residence is allowed. So in our code right now, that would be R1 and R2. A single family is not allowed in any other zone.
So could someone come to you with a bare piece? I'm sorry, I should probably ask Dave Weisbeck. Could someone come to you with a bare piece of ground and just propose a main house and an ADU and build them both at the same time?
Yes.
That'd be so much more efficient.
Yes, in the future. And I have had inquiries. We know this is going to happen, right? This is absolute. And so I tell folks that are looking to build a house, we have some lots that people are looking to build. And I say, you know, you can't do it right now, but if you want to plan for it, you know, you can build a residence and leave space in the back, and you can do, you know, apartment over a garage or whatever, because they're asking about it. I'm not, I'm not bringing it up to advocate for it. They've already asked the question because they know the state is requiring it. And I tell them, I don't know the details yet. I know you're going to be allowed to do it. I know you can have up to 1,000 square feet. That's all I can say about this right now. So you know, you have to plan ahead for that. So I do expect to see, not that many, but right now I think 3 lots people have inquired about building a house and doing an ADU in the future.
So you could not do it now, even though it's state law now.
Yeah, so we are required to adopt it within 6 months of our periodic update due date, which is the end of 26, because it got extended 6 months, but it'll be part of all of our regulation updates. So I expect it to be done by the end of 26, fingers crossed. There is an exception to the state, so it doesn't apply to us, but even if we didn't change our code, if the property is within, I think, a quarter mile of I forget the term they use, frequent transit stop, or I'm not sure the terminology, but basically if it's a big transit stop, you know, served frequently, not the number of people use it, but if like a bus is coming through every 15 minutes or a train or something, 15 minutes, like you have to allow it, right? We don't even have to have code. We just have to allow it, but it doesn't apply to us because our bus comes once an hour. So yeah.
Anyone else have any questions?
Can I ask a question from the audience?
Sure.
So if someone had a shop on their property, they could, with proper engineering, engineer an ADU.
If it met all the regulations, which we don't know for sure, like you couldn't put, or you potentially could put a unit on top of a garage if it was less than 24 feet.
The height, all that. What about maybe attached one? You showed one that was attached. If that's in a digital dwelling unit, does it have to have a wall that separates? Meaning that the people from one unit can't walk directly into the other
Yeah.
unit without exiting the unit.
Yeah, no, it has to be separated.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's curious.
Yeah. I was afraid you were going to ask about the building code. And I know that our building inspector, when he attended his annual training, accessory dwelling units was one of the subjects. So
Did anyone online have any questions? Well, you did. You did, Carl, we can't hear you. So, we thought we'd offer. Well, all right, if that's all, thank you, Elise.
Yep.
And item 7, public hearing, we have none. And so after that, now we have commission members. Any comments or concerns? So start with
Yeah, I'd like to
Judy.
talk again about the dome, you know, the things. Do you guys think it's something we should bring up and pursue? Or let it be? I'm not sure.
And I,
Yeah,
Carol.
so I don't know the status, but I know that we as a city are looking at a new contract for solid waste. And basically those type of things can be part of the contract and so many things were being explored. But I don't know, and there was gonna be an RFP to you know, have solid waste companies. What do you call it?
Bid.
You know, bid, thank you, bid on contract with us, but it's not part of my job, so I don't know where we're at on that, but I know it was part of the conversation, and that certainly was talked about, the coupons, because it was brought up at some point in the past.
Oh, go ahead, Kevin.
Yeah,
Ask Kevin.
I would agree with you, Judy. I think that's a really good thing. We should just pass on through, release it to Sunny to say,
yeah, it's,
please really consider this because coupons kind of
oh, it
make
would
sense.
save us so much money and so much time and hassle and drabs, you know. And it's just it would be a positive thing, I think.
I agree. I think it's worth exploring. Kevin.
I just want to thank Dave for the briefing on enforcement, code enforcement. Thank you. And Lisa, thanks for setting it up. That was very informative and useful to me.
And on that note about the coupons, we're working on replacing Title I, which is gonna give me better enforcement language, and it's gonna add a bunch of things. But part of the process of updating the code requires us to have a good standard code that basically everything points toward, which is that enforcement code. We're looking at things like voluntary compliance agreements. One of those caveats to that could be, hey, we're gonna put you on a voluntary compliance agreement to get your property cleaned up. As part of that, we may have the option to issue an extra coupon to that person if they need, you know, like really, we're really struggling getting this stuff out of here. Well, here's an option, you know, that would be, it's nice to be able to give people an option. So I do like the idea a lot.
Thank you, Dave.
No comment?
Okay. All right.
Thank you, Dave.
Yes, again, Des.
Nice
Thank
to
you,
see
Dave. Thanks, Elisa. No other comments from the committee? The commission? Okay, then our next to last is interested citizens, audience requests and comments. You have Ms. Robins, has something?
Mary Robertson, City Medical Aid President. Yes, I know one doesn't have to respond to my two single questions, but why wouldn't you? Notice most of the commissioners, you didn't respond back to the community to let them know where they stood in protecting and preserving our natural environment, even though it is part of the city's strategic plan. And this is what the residents want in accordance with the pulse of the community survey outcome. This lack of simple response action tells us everything we need to know about the commissioner's priorities and listening to the residents. Since the city uses our natural environment in their marketing campaigns for monetary purposes, therefore, how is the city going to enforce the protection and preservation of our natural environment when developers try to encroach upon these critical areas? Trust me, they will. Two of the commission's goals should be to recognize the right of citizens to influence decisions and also to serve as a sounding board for new ideas, outreach to educate, which will help the commissioners become an effective planning commission for the community and not only for the city. Do not forget the desires of the community. Interesting to note, 3 of the commissioners even live on the lake, from what I've been told. What is the actual source and the date of this handout?
At the bottom, but
Okay, that's what I thought you was gonna say. Well, if you type this in, it doesn't exist. Okay, and the actual source is from the west side of the state, Kitsap County, okay, in Port Orchard, Washington. Okay, and did you know there is a same folks produced a summary guide to assist in running advisory group meetings, Robert Rules of Order, and parliamentary procedure, which was revised 3 April 2024. 2. Remember, these processes are designed to ensure that everyone has a chance to participate and to share ideas in an orderly manner. Procedures should not be used to prevent discussion of important issues. I would definitely put the source to add it, because we need to give credit where credit is due. Last question today for the commissioners in the city. Why wasn't a consistency evaluation done on the current CAO with a comp plan before sending it to the city council for a vote, as it is stated in the city's public participation plan 2026 elements? It must be very nice to have more responsibilities than the commissioners are required to do and still receive credit that they have not earned. For example, the Planning Commission is instrumental in creating or preparing the comprehensive plan as stated in the city's periodic update work plan 2046, because we all know that the city planner does this and not the commissioners. This must look great on resumes. Okay, Saint Katera, First Native American saint, pray for the protection and preservation of our city's wetlands and natural environment. She is the lily, known as the Lily of the Mohawks, is the patron saint for the environment and ecology. Our wetlands, forests, and lakes will need divine intervention based on history. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the audience have any comments they wanted to make? Take that as a no. Okay. Anyone online? Other than Carl? Sorry, Carl.
Unless you can hear me now.
Okay, well then that concludes our meeting for today. Thank you very much, and I guess we will.
I make a motion, we
Oh, we had to make a motion to adjourn. I'm
make a
so
motion,
sorry.
we go home.
Okay,
I second.
you second it? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, we are officially adjourned.
And time.
And the time is at 6:51 or 52? It's
Yeah.
like 6:51 to me.
Close enough.
6:52. I looked at my.
I think it'll date